I never thought my own stepbrother would assault me in a hospital waiting room, but there I was sitting in the gynecologist's office with fresh stitches from emergency surgery when Derek stormed in screaming about payment options. The moment I refused to empty my life savings for our mother's treatment, his hand connected with my face so violently that I crashed backward into a metal chair. As I hit the cold linoleum floor, pain shooting through my healing incision, Derek stood over me sneering that I thought I was too good to sacrifice for family. What he didn't realize was that every security camera in that waiting room was recording his brutality. The story of how I ended up on that hospital floor begins 16 years earlier, when my mother Linda married Derek's father Paul. I was 12, Derek was 15, and from day one he made it clear that he saw our blended family as his personal resource center. While other teenagers were learning responsibility, Derek mastered the art of manipulation, always finding ways to make others solve his problems while he coasted through life. Derek grew into a construction foreman who earned decent money but never seemed to have any saved. He lived paycheck to paycheck despite making more than me in my marketing coordinator position. When Linda was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer 6 months ago, Derek immediately volunteered me to handle the financial arrangements. Not himself, of course, but me. "Carissa has perfect credit," he told our parents during that devastating family meeting. "The insurance will cover most everything, but we need someone reliable to handle the billing and payment plans." I agreed because I loved my mother and wanted her to get the best possible care. Derek promised he would contribute his share of any out-of-pocket expenses. That promise lasted exactly 2 weeks. Every month since the diagnosis, I had been receiving increasingly urgent calls from billing departments. Derek always had excuses. His paycheck was delayed. His truck needed expensive repairs. His apartment complex raised his rent unexpectedly. One excuse after another while the medical bills accumulated in my name. The breaking point came 3 days before that horrible confrontation. I had been experiencing severe abdominal pain that I initially dismissed as stress from managing Linda's care. When the pain became unbearable, I drove myself to the emergency room at 2 a.m, doubled over and barely able to walk. The diagnosis was multiple ovarian cysts, some large enough to require immediate surgical removal. As I lay in that hospital bed awaiting surgery, I couldn't help thinking about my family history. Linda's cancer, now my own reproductive health issues. What if this was genetic? What if I needed ongoing medical care myself? I had worked for 6 years to build up a $20,000 emergency fund, living frugally and sacrificing small luxuries to ensure I could handle unexpected crises. Now facing my own potential health problems, that money felt more crucial than ever. Derek tracked me down at my follow-up appointment because the billing department had called about Linda's overdue account. He burst into the gynecology waiting room like he owned the place, his work boots tracking mud across the pristine floor. "We need to talk," he announced loud enough that other patients looked up from their magazines. "Right now." "Derek, I just had surgery." I whispered, acutely aware of the other women waiting for their appointments. "This isn't the place." "Everywhere is the place when Mom is dying." He shot back his voice, carrying that familiar edge of manufactured urgency he used whenever he wanted something. "The hospital called. They want $15,000 to keep her treatment going." My stomach dropped. $15,000 was 3/4 of my entire emergency fund. "What happened to your contribution?" I asked quietly. "You promised you would help with the payments." Derek's expression hardened. "Things change, Carissa. I've got my own situation to deal with. You're the one with the savings account sitting there doing nothing." "That money isn't doing nothing," I protested. "It's my security, especially now that I might have ongoing medical issues myself." "So you're choosing yourself over Mom." Derek's voice rose again. Several patients were now openly staring. "That's real nice, Carissa. Real family loyalty." The unfairness of his accusation stung. I had already sacrificed my credit rating and peace of mind for Linda's treatment. I had been fielding calls from medical billing departments for months, while Derek contributed nothing but criticism. "I'm not choosing myself over anyone," I said firmly. "I'm asking you to take responsibility for your share of Mom's care like you promised." Derek leaned forward, his face inches from mine. The smell of cigarettes and coffee on his breath made my surgical nausea worse. "Here's the reality check you apparently need," he hissed. "Mom doesn't have time for me to figure out my finances. Either you empty that account today or her next treatment gets canceled. Which option sounds better to you?" That's when the truth hit me like a physical blow. Derek had been planning this moment from the beginning. He had never intended to contribute anything to Linda's care. He had manipulated the entire family into putting everything in my name so he could pressure me into paying while he kept his own money free and clear. "Choose how you pay or get out," Derek demanded, his voice carrying a viciousness I had never heard before. "I'm not leaving here until you give me your bank account information." The other patients in the waiting room had stopped pretending not to listen. A pregnant woman near the window kept glancing toward the reception desk, clearly considering whether to alert the staff. An elderly lady clutched her purse tighter, as if Derek's aggression might somehow spread to threaten her as well. "Derek, you need to lower your voice," I said, trying to project calm while my heart hammered against my ribs. "These people are here for medical care, not to witness family drama." Family drama. Derek's laugh was harsh and bitter. "This is about Mom's life, and you're worried about embarrassing strangers." "I'm worried about finding solutions that don't involve destroying my financial security," I replied. "Have you looked into payment plans, charity care programs, insurance appeals? There are options besides demanding I empty my savings." Derek's face flushed red. "I don't have time for that bureaucratic garbage. Mom needs treatment now and you have money now. It's simple math." "What isn't simple is why you haven't contributed a single dollar while I've been handling everything." I shot back, my own anger finally breaking through. "Where's your money going, Derek? Because it's certainly not going to Mom's medical bills." For just a moment, Derek's mask slipped. I saw something flicker across his features that looked almost like panic. Then his expression hardened into something cold and calculating. "My money situation is none of your business," he said slowly. "Your money situation is everybody's business when Mom's dying." "That makes no sense, and you know it." I stood up, carefully mindful of my healing incision. "I'm going to my appointment. We can discuss this later when you're thinking clearly." Derek moved to block my path to the reception desk. "You're not going anywhere until this gets resolved." "Excuse me," I said firmly, trying to step around him. "You don't get to hold me prisoner in a medical waiting room." That's when Derek grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into the flesh hard enough to leave bruises. "You better start acting like family or get out of ours forever." "Let go of me," I said, my voice tight with pain. Several other patients were now openly alarmed, and I could see the receptionist reaching for her phone. "You think you're too good for this?" Derek's grip tightened. "Too good to sacrifice for the woman who raised you." "I think I'm too smart to enable your financial irresponsibility," I snapped back. Derek's hand connected with my face so hard that stars exploded across my vision. The force of the blow sent me stumbling backward, my feet tangling together as I tried to regain balance. My back hit the metal edge of a waiting room chair, and then I was falling, my body crashing to the floor with a sickening thud. Pain erupted along my surgical incision as the impact tore at my healing tissues. I could feel warmth spreading across my abdomen and realized with horror that I was bleeding through my shirt. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed blindingly bright as I lay on the cold linoleum, clutching my side and struggling to breathe. "Oh my God," someone gasped. "Call security." Derek stood over me, his face twisted with rage and something that looked almost like satisfaction. "You brought this on yourself," he said coldly. "All you had to do was write a check." The pregnant woman near the window was speaking rapidly into her cell phone, giving our location to what sounded like emergency services. The elderly lady had pressed herself back into her chair, staring at Derek with undisguised fear. The receptionist was frantically pushing buttons on her desk phone while other staff members rushed toward the waiting room. "Sir, you need to step away from her right now," a security guard's voice boomed as footsteps pounded down the hallway. Derek immediately switched tactics, his expression shifting to one of concerned confusion. "She just collapsed," he said, his voice taking on a tone of worried innocence. "I think the stress of Mom's illness is getting to her. She's been acting really unstable lately." "That's not what happened," the pregnant woman said firmly. "He hit her. I saw the whole thing." "So did I," the elderly lady added, her voice shaking but determined. "He slapped her right across the face." Derek's jaw tightened, but he maintained his act. "They're misunderstanding what they saw. My stepsister has been under a lot of pressure, and she's not thinking clearly. She probably needs psychiatric evaluation." As medical staff knelt beside me, checking my pulse and examining my reopened incision, I could hear Derek continuing his performance. He was telling the security guards about my supposed emotional instability, my irrational behavior regarding Linda's treatment, my need for professional mental health intervention. But through my pain and shock, I caught something else. Derek was standing near the window, partially turned away from the security guards, speaking quietly into his phone. "Don't worry," I heard him murmur. "I'll have your money by tonight. The stupid girl will pay up once she realizes what happens to family who don't cooperate." The words sent ice through my veins. Derek wasn't just stealing my money for Linda's treatment. He owed someone else, someone who apparently expected payment tonight. His desperation suddenly made horrifying sense. He wasn't just manipulative and selfish, he was dangerous, and he was willing to destroy me to save himself. The emergency room doctor's face was grim as he examined my reopened incision. Blood had soaked through my shirt, creating a dark stain that spread with each movement. The impact with the chair had torn several internal stitches, causing bleeding that required immediate surgical intervention. "We need to get you into surgery right away," Dr. Peterson explained as nurses wheeled a gurney into the examination room. "The internal bleeding isn't stopping on its own." As they prepared me for another operation, I could hear Derek in the hallway outside, his voice carrying through the thin walls. He wasn't speaking to medical staff or security guards. He was on his phone again, and this conversation was different from the first one I had overheard. "Yeah, it's Derek," he was saying. "I need to talk to that lawyer you mentioned, the one who handles emergency situations." My blood chilled as the implications sank in. Derek wasn't just planning to manipulate me into giving him money. He was planning something legal, something that would give him access to my finances even if I refused. "How fast can we get emergency guardianship papers filed?" Derek continued. "She's having a mental breakdown. Multiple witnesses saw her collapse in the doctor's office. I'm concerned she's becoming a danger to herself." The nurse inserting my IV must have noticed my distress because she squeezed my hand gently. "Try to stay calm," she whispered. "Whatever's happening out there, you're safe in here." But I wasn't safe. Derek was positioning himself to have me declared mentally incompetent. If he succeeded, he could gain legal control over my finances, my medical decisions, my entire life. The $20,000 would be just the beginning. As they wheeled me toward the operating room, I caught a glimpse of a man in an expensive suit talking to Derek near the nurse's station. The lawyer presumably arriving with suspicious speed for someone handling a legitimate emergency guardianship case. "The key is timing," the lawyer was saying as I passed. "If we file the papers within 24 hours of the incident while she's still recovering from surgery, the judge will be more inclined to grant temporary guardianship based on medical evidence of instability." "What kind of medical evidence?" Derek asked. "Doesn't matter. By the time she's coherent enough to challenge it, I'll have documentation showing erratic behavior, family concerns about her judgment, financial irresponsibility. The surgery gives us a window where she can't effectively defend herself." Derek's response was lost as they pushed me through the operating room doors, but I had heard enough. This wasn't just theft. It was a calculated legal assault designed to strip away my rights and autonomy. During the surgery prep, as the anesthesiologist prepared the IV medications, I managed to whisper to the attending nurse, The man in the hallway threatening legal action against me, I said urgently. Can someone document that I'm mentally competent right now before the anesthesia? The nurse exchanged glances with Dr. Peterson. What kind of documentation do you need? Something showing I can make rational decisions about my own care and finances, I said. My stepbrother is trying to have me declared incompetent to steal my money. Dr. Peterson's expression hardened. We'll make sure there's a clear record of your mental state before surgery, he assured me, and I'll speak to hospital administration about the situation in the waiting room. As the anesthesia began to take effect, my last conscious thought was about the overheard phone conversation. Derek had mentioned having someone's money by tonight. Who was he really working for, and what would happen when his plan to steal my savings failed? I woke up several hours later to find my mother Linda sitting beside my hospital bed, her face drawn with worry and confusion. For a moment I was disoriented, wondering how she had gotten there and why she looked healthier than I had expected. "Carissa, honey," Linda said softly, "Derek called me about some kind of emergency guardianship situation. He said you had a breakdown in the doctor's office and attacked him." "Mom, that's not what happened," I said, my voice hoarse from the breathing tube. "Derek hit me. There are witnesses." Linda's face crumpled. I was afraid something like this might happen. Derek has been acting strange lately, secretive. He's been intercepting my calls from the oncology team. "What do you mean?" "Phone calls about my treatment options. Derek always answers when the hospital calls the house, and lately he's been telling me the doctors don't want to talk to me directly because the news is too complicated." Linda's voice broke. "But today I was here for a consultation Derek didn't know about, a clinical trial consultation." My heart sank. What kind of clinical trial? Experimental treatment that could be more effective than what I'm getting now, and it's completely free for participants who qualify. Linda's tears began flowing freely. "The doctor said they've been trying to reach our family for weeks about the program. Derek never told me." The pieces began clicking into place with sickening clarity. Derek had been sabotaging Linda's treatment options, keeping her focused on expensive procedures while hiding alternatives that would eliminate his excuse to steal my money. "Mom," I said carefully, "how much do you really know about the bills Derek says I need to pay?" Linda wiped her eyes with a tissue. "He shows me statements sometimes, but honestly, I don't understand most of the insurance paperwork. I trusted him to handle the details." "Have you seen the actual bills? The ones addressed to me?" "No, Derek always said they were too complicated for me to worry about while I'm dealing with treatment." A terrible suspicion was forming in my mind. "Mom, when Derek told you about today's emergency guardianship situation, how did he know I was in surgery?" Linda's face went pale. "He said the hospital called him as my emergency contact when you were brought in. But you're here for your own appointment. How would Derek know about my surgery unless he was the reason I needed it?" The implications hung between us like a toxic cloud. Derek hadn't just been lying about treatment options and financial responsibilities. He had been orchestrating a systematic campaign to isolate and control both Linda and me, using her illness as leverage to steal my money while sabotaging her access to better care. Linda's phone rang and Derek's name appeared on the screen. She looked at me with new understanding before answering. "Derek?" "Yes. I'm at the hospital with Carissa." She paused, listening. "No, I don't think she needs a guardian. She seems perfectly rational to me." Another pause. "What do you mean she's been making irrational financial decisions?" "What decisions?" I could hear Derek's voice through the phone, rapid and urgent, but couldn't make out the words. Linda's expression grew increasingly skeptical as she listened. "Derek, I think we need to have a family meeting about this. All three of us together with no lawyers or doctors or anyone else. Just family." She ended the call and turned to me with determination I hadn't seen since before her diagnosis. "Carissa, I think it's time we figured out exactly what Derek has been doing. And I think we need to do it before he can file whatever papers he's planning to file. The first call I made was to my college roommate, Jessica, now a paralegal at a family law firm in downtown Chicago. Despite the late hour, she answered on the second ring. "Carissa, what's wrong? You sound terrible." "Jess, I need legal advice fast. My stepbrother is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal my savings." I quickly explained the assault, the surgery, and Derek's plans for emergency guardianship. "Okay, listen carefully," Jessica said, her voice shifting into professional mode. "First, you need to document your mental competency immediately. Can you access your phone's video camera?" "Yes, why?" "Record yourself stating your full name, today's date, your address, and a clear explanation of your current situation. Include your reasons for refusing to give Derek access to your finances. Make it obvious that you're thinking clearly and making rational decisions." I followed her instructions, creating a detailed video statement while Linda held my phone steady. The recording would serve as evidence that I was mentally competent immediately after surgery, undermining any claims of incapacity. "Second," Jessica continued, "call your bank right now and put a freeze on all your accounts. Don't wait until morning. If Derek has any of your personal information, he might try to access your money tonight." Linda handed me my wallet so I could find my bank's emergency number. Within 10 minutes, I had placed security holds on all my accounts, requiring in-person verification with photo identification for any transactions. Third, file a police report about the assault immediately. Hospital security footage will support your version of events, but you need an official report before Derek can spin the narrative. "How do I do that from a hospital bed?" "Ask for the hospital's patient advocate. They deal with situations like this regularly and can help coordinate with law enforcement." The patient advocate, a kind woman named Patricia, arrived within half an hour. She brought paperwork for documenting the assault and contact information for the detective who would handle my case. "We've already secured the waiting room security footage," Patricia explained. "The hospital takes patient safety very seriously. Your stepbrother's behavior was completely unacceptable." As I filled out the police report, Linda made her own calls. First to her oncology team to ask about treatment options Derek might have hidden from her. Then to her insurance company to request copies of all bills and claims submitted in her name. The insurance representative said something strange, Linda told me after finishing her call. They said several claims were submitted for experimental treatments that were later changed to different procedures. She's sending me copies of all the paperwork. "What kind of experimental treatments?" "Ones that would have been much more expensive than what I actually received. But if the insurance approved payment for expensive treatments, where did that money go?" A chilling possibility occurred to me. "Mom, have you been paying Derek directly for any medical expenses?" Linda's face went white. "He said the billing was too complicated for me to handle directly. I've been giving him checks made out to cash whenever he said there were co-pays or uncovered services." "How much?" "Over the past 6 months, maybe $8,000 or $9,000. My stomach dropped. Derek hadn't just been lying about treatment options. He had been stealing from Linda while forcing me to pay the actual medical bills. He was double-dipping, collecting money from both of us while providing neither the treatment Linda needed nor the financial relief he had promised me. The detective who took my statement was Marcus Rodriguez, someone I recognized with a shock of surprise. We had dated briefly 3 years earlier before his police academy training took him to a different city. The relationship had ended amicably when his career required relocation. "Carissa." Marcus's face reflected the same recognition. "I heard about the assault case but didn't realize you were the victim." "Marcus, thank God it's you," I said with relief. "You know me well enough to know I'm not having a mental breakdown." "Tell me what happened," he said, pulling out his notebook. "Start from the beginning." I explained the entire situation from Derek's financial manipulation to his plans for emergency guardianship. Marcus listened carefully, occasionally, asking clarifying questions about specific incidents and timeline details. "This sounds like more than just family financial abuse," Marcus said when I finished. "The systematic nature of the deception, the forged documents, the coordinated legal strategy. Has Derek shown signs of having money problems beyond what he's told your family?" He mentioned owing money to someone who expects payment tonight, I said. He was talking on the phone about having my money ready for them. Marcus's expression sharpened. Did he mention any names? Anything about the nature of the debt? No, but he seemed scared, like these people weren't just regular creditors. Carissa, I need to tell you something. Derek's name has come up in an ongoing investigation related to financial fraud at construction sites. We've been tracking fake invoices and kickback schemes involving several contractors in the area. My heart began racing. What kind of financial fraud? Companies billing for work that was never performed, materials that were never delivered, workers who don't exist. The money trail suggests someone has been using legitimate construction businesses to launder funds from other sources. You think Derek is involved? Marcus nodded grimly. We've been building a case for months, but we needed more evidence. If Derek has been stealing from family members to cover gambling debts or pay off criminal associates, that could be the connection we've been looking for. Linda leaned forward in her chair. Detective Rodriguez, what does this mean for Carissa's situation with the guardianship papers? It means Derek's desperation might be about more than just family money, Marcus replied. If he's connected to organized financial fraud, he might be planning to flee the area. Stealing Carissa's savings could be his exit strategy. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Derek hadn't just been manipulating Linda's medical care and stealing our money for gambling debts. He had been involved in criminal activities that put our entire family at risk. What can we do to protect ourselves? I asked. Marcus closed his notebook and stood up. First, I'm going to make sure there's a patrol car stationed outside this hospital room tonight. If Derek is working with dangerous people, your safety could be at risk now that you've refused to cooperate. Second, we're going to coordinate with federal investigators who have been tracking the financial fraud case. Your information about Derek's activities could be crucial evidence. Third, we're going to make sure Derek's guardianship filing gets flagged with the family court. Judges need to know when someone with potential criminal connections is trying to gain control over another person's finances. As Marcus prepared to leave, he turned back to me with an expression I remembered from our dating days. Protective, determined, and slightly worried. Carissa, I want you to know that what Derek did today was assault regardless of any family drama. You have every right to press charges and seek protection. Don't let anyone convince you this is just a family matter. I won't, I promised. And Marcus, thank you for taking this seriously. After Marcus left Linda and I sat in the hospital room processing everything we had learned. Derek wasn't just a selfish stepbrother who had stolen our money. He was potentially involved in organized crime using our family's medical crisis as cover for much more serious criminal activities. Carissa. Linda said softly, I owe you an enormous apology. I trusted Derek to handle our finances because I was scared and overwhelmed by my diagnosis. I should have paid more attention. Mom, you were dealing with cancer. Derek took advantage of your vulnerability just like he took advantage of mine. But I'm your mother. It's my job to protect you, not the other way around. I reached for her hand. We protected each other. You came here when you realized something was wrong and you're helping me fight back now. That's what family really means. Linda squeezed my hand gently. What do we do next? We make sure Derek can't hurt anyone else, and we make sure you get the medical care you deserve without his interference. For the first time in months, I felt like Linda and I were truly working together instead of being manipulated against each other. Derek's assault had backfired in a way he could never have anticipated. Instead of breaking my resistance, it had opened our eyes to the full scope of his deception and brought us closer together. Linda's insurance paperwork arrived the next morning via courier, and what we discovered made both of us physically sick. Derek had been submitting false claims for over 4 months, billing insurance companies for treatments Linda never received while pocketing the reimbursement checks. Look at this, Linda said, her voice shaking as she read through the documents. It says here that I received experimental chemotherapy treatments in January, but I wasn't even diagnosed until February. I examined the paperwork over her shoulder. The billing showed expensive procedures, all approved by insurance, all supposedly completed at medical facilities I had never heard of. "Mom, these places don't even exist," I said, researching the clinic names on my phone. Derek created fake medical providers to submit fraudulent claims. The scope of Derek's deception was staggering. He had been systematically stealing from Linda's insurance company while forcing both of us to pay for her actual medical care. The total theft exceeded $60,000 in false claims, alone not counting the money he had taken directly from Linda or the bills he had forced me to cover. Linda's oncologist, Dr. Williams, arrived for morning rounds and immediately noticed the insurance documents spread across my hospital bed. "Mrs. Chen," he said to Linda, using her married name, "I'm glad you're here. We've been trying to reach your family about several treatment options that could significantly improve your prognosis." "What kind of treatment options?" Linda asked. "A new clinical trial specifically designed for your type of cancer. The treatment has shown remarkable success rates, and participants receive completely free medical care for the duration of the study." Linda and I exchanged glances. "Doctor, we never received any information about a clinical trial." Dr. Williams frowned. "That's strange. We've left multiple messages with Derek Chen over the past month. He told us that he was coordinating all medical communications for the family." "What exactly did Derek tell you?" I asked. "He said that you, Mrs. Chen, were too emotionally fragile to handle discussions about experimental treatments, and that the family had decided to focus on traditional chemotherapy options only." Linda's face flushed with anger. "Doctor, I was never consulted about any treatment decisions. Derek made those choices without my knowledge or consent." Dr. Williams looked disturbed. "Mrs. Chen, you have the absolute right to make your own medical decisions. If someone has been interfering with your access to information about treatment options, that's a very serious matter." "Can you tell us more about this clinical trial?" I asked. "The treatment protocol has shown an 80% success rate in cases similar to your mother's. Participants receive cutting-edge therapy that wouldn't be available through traditional treatment channels for several years. And because it's a research study, all costs are covered by the pharmaceutical company sponsoring the trial." Linda began crying. "Derek told me that experimental treatments were too risky and that traditional chemotherapy was my only realistic option. In your case, Mrs. Chen, the experimental treatment would actually be safer than traditional chemotherapy, with fewer side effects and better outcomes." The implications were devastating. Derek hadn't just been stealing money. He had been sabotaging Linda's chances of survival by keeping her away from treatment that could save her life. Derek chose that moment to arrive at the hospital, entering my room with his fake lawyer in tow. Both men stopped short when they saw Dr. Williams and the insurance documents scattered across the bed. "What's going on here?" Derek demanded. "I thought we agreed that Carissa needed psychiatric evaluation before making any major decisions." "We didn't agree to anything," Linda said firmly. "And I've been learning some very interesting things about the way you've been handling my medical care." Derek's face went pale, but he maintained his aggressive posture. "Mom, you shouldn't be dealing with complicated medical stuff while you're getting treatment. That's why Carissa and I are supposed to handle the business side." "Except Carissa isn't handling anything," Linda replied. "You've been lying to everyone about treatment options, billing, and financial arrangements." Dr. Williams stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, I need to clarify something. Did you or did you not decline experimental treatment options on your mother's behalf without consulting her directly?" Derek's jaw tightened. Those experimental treatments were risky. I was protecting her from false hope. "That wasn't your decision to make," Dr. Williams said sternly, "and the treatments I recommended were statistically safer than the chemotherapy she's been receiving." "Look," Derek's fake lawyer interjected, "we're here to address Miss Chen's obvious mental incapacity. These conspiracy theories about medical fraud are just further evidence that she needs professional intervention." Marcus chose that moment to enter the room, his detective's badge clearly visible on his belt. Behind him were two federal agents wearing FBI windbreakers. "Derek Chen." Marcus said formally, We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of insurance fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse. Derek's expression shifted from arrogance to panic in the span of a heartbeat. This is ridiculous. I'm here trying to help my family. By submitting $60,000 in false insurance claims, Marcus asked. By forging your stepsister's signature on financial documents, by stealing money from your mother while she's receiving cancer treatment. The fake lawyer began backing toward the door, but one of the federal agents moved to block his exit. Richard Morrison. The agent said to Derek's accomplice, "You're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and practicing law without a license." Derek's face crumpled as he realized his scheme was unraveling completely. "You don't understand," he said desperately. "I needed that money. These people I owe, they're not patient. They'll hurt Mom if I don't pay." "What people?" Marcus demanded. Derek looked around the room wildly as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. "I got involved with some guys who run poker games, high-stakes stuff. I thought I could win enough to help Mom's medical bills, but I kept losing. They said they'd give me time to pay if I helped them launder money through construction invoices." Linda gasped. "Derek, how could you get involved with criminals?" "It started small." Derek said, tears beginning to flow. "Just fake invoices here and there. But then they wanted bigger amounts and I needed your insurance money to make the numbers work." Marcus was taking notes rapidly. "Who are these people? Derek names addresses, meeting locations." "If I tell you, they'll kill me?" Derek whispered. "If you don't tell us, you'll spend the next 20 years in federal prison," Marcus replied. "And if these people are threatening your family, we need to know about it to protect them." Derek broke down completely, then sobbing as he provided names and details about the criminal organization he had become involved with. The federal agents listened carefully, occasionally exchanging glances that suggested Derek's information was valuable to their broader investigation. As they prepared to take Derek into custody, he turned to Linda with genuine remorse in his eyes. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he said through his tears. "I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted to help with your medical bills and everything got out of control." Linda's response was quiet but firm. "Derek, you weren't helping with my medical bills. You were stealing from them, and you were keeping me away from treatments that could save my life." "I know," Derek whispered. "I know I screwed up everything. I just hope you can forgive me someday." As the authorities led Derek away, his fake lawyer also in handcuffs, the hospital room fell silent. Linda and I sat together processing the magnitude of what we had just witnessed. Dr. Williams cleared his throat gently. "Mrs. Chen, if you're interested in learning more about the clinical trial, I can arrange for you to meet with the research team this afternoon." Linda nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "Yes, please, I want to explore every option available." "And Carissa." Dr. Williams continued, "I want you to know that the hospital will fully support your recovery from this traumatic situation. We have counseling services available if you need them." "Thank you," I said. "I think we both have a lot of healing to do." As Dr. Williams left to arrange Linda's consultation, Marcus returned to my bedside. "The federal agents wanted me to tell you that Derek's information is going to help them shut down a major money laundering operation. See," he said. "Your refusal to give him access to your money may have prevented these criminals from moving significant illegal funds." "What happens now?" Linda asked. "Derek will likely face federal charges that could result in a lengthy prison sentence," Marcus explained. "But if he cooperates fully with the investigation and testifies against his criminal associates, he might be able to negotiate a reduced sentence." "And what about our safety?" I asked. "If these criminals realize Derek can't deliver the money they expected..." Marcus's expression was serious but reassuring. "We'll have protective details for both of you until the criminal organization is dismantled. The FBI believes they can make arrests within the next 48 hours. As Marcus left to coordinate with the federal investigation, Linda and I finally had a moment alone to process everything that had happened. "Carissa," Linda said softly, "I keep thinking about how different things could have been if you had given Derek access to your savings account." "What do you mean?" Those criminals would have gotten their money, Derek would have disappeared, and I would have continued receiving inferior medical treatment while believing it was the best available. I hadn't thought about it that way, but Linda was right. My refusal to enable Derek's theft had ultimately protected both of us from much worse outcomes. Also, Linda continued, if you hadn't had that emergency surgery when you did, we might never have discovered Derek's fraud schemes. In a strange way, your medical crisis saved us both. The irony wasn't lost on me. Derek's assault intended to force my compliance had instead exposed his criminal activities and brought us the help we needed. His desperation had been his downfall. Mom, I said, what made you finally realize that Derek was lying? Linda was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. When he told me you were having a mental breakdown, it didn't match the daughter I knew. You've always been the most level-headed person in our family. If you were refusing to pay medical bills, I knew there had to be a good reason. I was so afraid you would believe his version of events. For a while, I might have, Linda admitted. Derek has been very convincing about handling the complicated parts of my treatment. But when I saw you in this hospital bed talking rationally about your concerns, I realized he had been manipulating both of us. We're not going to let anyone manipulate us again, I said firmly. Linda smiled through her tears. No, we're not. We're going to make our own decisions about medical care, finances, and everything else. Together, I added. Together, Linda agreed. The FBI moved fast. Within 18 hours of Derek's arrest, federal agents had coordinated raids on 6 locations across 3 states, dismantling what they described as a sophisticated money laundering network that had been operating for over 2 years. Marcus visited my hospital room the following morning to update us on the investigation's progress. Derek's information was incredibly valuable, he explained. The criminal organization he was working with had been using fake construction companies to clean money from drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and theft operations. Derek's theft from your family was just one small piece of a much larger criminal enterprise. Did they arrest the people Derek owed money to? Linda asked. 12 arrests so far, with more expected as we analyze financial records and digital communications. The ringleader, a man named Vincent Torino, had been threatening several of Derek's family members to ensure his cooperation. My blood ran cold. They were threatening us. Marcus nodded grimly. Derek's gambling debts were real, but they were also leverage. Torino's organization used threats against family members to control people like Derek who helped them launder money. So Derek wasn't just stealing our money to pay gambling debts, I said slowly. He was stealing it to protect us from criminals. That's what he believed, Marcus confirmed. But the reality is that paying them would have only made the situation worse. Criminal organizations never release their leverage. They would have continued demanding more money and more criminal cooperation indefinitely. Linda shook her head in dismay. Derek thought he was protecting us, but he was actually putting us in more danger. Exactly. And by refusing to give Derek access to your savings, Carissa, you prevented these criminals from establishing a longer-term financial relationship with your family. The irony was overwhelming. Derek's assault, intended to force my compliance with his demands, had instead triggered the investigation that brought down the entire criminal network. His desperation to protect us had nearly destroyed us, while my refusal to enable him had ultimately saved us. There's something else you should know, Marcus continued. During the raids, federal agents discovered evidence that Derek had been planning to fake his own death and assume a new identity. What? Linda gasped. Marcus pulled out a folder of documents. False identification papers, plane tickets to South America, and a detailed plan for staging a construction accident that would have left Derek legally dead while allowing him to escape with stolen money. I stared at the papers in shock. He was going to abandon us. The plan was to fake his death after stealing enough money to pay off his criminal debts and finance his new life abroad. Your family would have been left believing Derek died heroically trying to provide for your mother's medical care, while also being responsible for all the debts he had accumulated in your names. Linda's face went white. How long had he been planning this? Based on the documents, we found at least 6 months. Derek had been building toward this escape plan since shortly after your cancer diagnosis. The revelation was devastating. Derek hadn't just been stealing our money for gambling debts or even criminal associates. He had been systematically destroying our financial lives to fund his planned disappearance, using Linda's illness as emotional cover for his theft. "There's more," Marcus said gently. "Derek had been forging your signatures on loan applications, credit card accounts, and medical billing agreements. If his plan had succeeded, you would have been left with over $200,000 in debt that legally appeared to be your responsibility." I felt physically sick. $200,000. Insurance fraud, fake medical loans, credit cards taken out in your name, and forged signatures on financial guarantees for his construction business. Derek had been building a financial time bomb that would have exploded after his supposed death. Linda began crying again, but this time her tears were angry rather than sad. Derek was going to destroy our lives to save his own. "Yes," Marcus said simply, and the assault on Carissa was his last desperate attempt to access clean money before implementing his escape plan. "What happens to all the debt Derek accumulated in our names?" I asked. "The FBI has been coordinating with banking authorities and insurance companies to document which debts were fraudulently created. You shouldn't be responsible for any financial obligations that resulted from Derek's criminal activities. And the money he stole from Mom's medical accounts. Most of it has been recovered from bank accounts Derek hadn't yet moved to offshore locations. The insurance companies are also working to reverse fraudulent claims and restore proper coverage for Linda's treatment. Dr. Williams arrived during our conversation to discuss Linda's consultation with the clinical trial research team. "Mrs. Chen," he said with evident excitement, "I have wonderful news. You've been accepted into the experimental treatment program, and based on your current health status, the research team believes you have an excellent chance of complete remission." Linda's face lit up with the first genuine happiness I had seen from her in months. "Really? You think the treatment will work?" "The preliminary results have been extraordinary. Patients with your specific cancer markers have shown a 95% success rate with the new therapy protocol." "And it's completely free?" Linda asked, still hardly believing the news. "Completely covered by the research grant. You'll receive the most advanced cancer treatment available anywhere in the world at no cost to your family." I squeezed Linda's hand as we both realized how different our situation had become. Just days earlier, we had been facing financial ruin and inferior medical care due to Derek's manipulation. Now Linda would receive cutting-edge treatment that offered her the best possible chance of survival, while the financial crimes committed against us were being resolved by federal authorities. "There is one complication we need to discuss," Marcus interjected. "Derek's criminal associates still don't know that their operation has been compromised. We expect to make additional arrests within the next 24 hours, but until then you're both in protective custody." "What does that mean?" I asked. "Plainclothes officers will be stationed near your hospital room and your home. If anyone approaches you claiming to represent Derek's interests or asking about money, you contact law enforcement immediately." "Are we in danger?" Linda asked. Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Derek's arrest happened quietly, and we believe his criminal associates think he's still working on getting your money. But once they realize he's been compromised, they might try to contact you directly. To threaten us, or to offer deals. Criminal organizations sometimes approach victims of their associates, claiming they can make problems go away in exchange for payment. Under no circumstances should you engage with anyone who contacts you about Derek's situation." As Marcus prepared to leave, he turned back with a slight smile. "I have to say, Carissa, your refusal to give Derek access to your savings account may have been the single most important decision in this entire investigation. If you had cooperated with his demands, these criminals could have continued operating for years." "I was just trying to protect my emergency fund," I said. You protected a lot more than that. You protected yourself, your mother, and potentially dozens of future victims of this criminal organization. After Marcus left, Linda and I sat together in comfortable silence for the first time in months. The weight of Derek's deception and criminal activities was still overwhelming, but we finally had clarity about our situation and hope for our future. Carissa. Linda said eventually, "I want to ask for your forgiveness." For what? For not seeing through Derek's manipulation sooner, for letting him convince me that you were being selfish about money, for not protecting you when you needed protection. Mom, you were dealing with cancer while Derek was systematically lying to both of us. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have trusted your judgment about financial decisions. You were right to refuse Derek's demands even when I didn't understand why. We both did the best we could with the information Derek was giving us, I said. What matters is that we figured out the truth and we're working together now. Linda nodded, wiping away fresh tears. What do you think will happen to Derek? I considered the question carefully. I think he'll go to prison for a long time, but I also think he might finally get the help he needs for his gambling addiction and whatever other problems led him to make these choices. Do you think he can ever make this right? I don't know if he can undo the damage he caused, I said honestly, but maybe someday he can become someone who doesn't hurt the people who love him. Linda was quiet for a moment. I hope so. Despite everything he did, he's still my stepson, and I still love him. I know you do, and that's what makes you a better person than Derek deserves. As the afternoon continued, we began making practical plans for Linda's new treatment protocol and my own recovery from surgery. For the first time in months, we were making decisions based on accurate information and our own best interests rather than Derek's manipulation and lies. The future finally looked hopeful again. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse watching Derek receive his sentence. 15 years in federal prison for money laundering, insurance fraud, financial elder abuse, and conspiracy charges. The judge had been particularly harsh about Derek's exploitation of Linda's cancer diagnosis to facilitate his crimes. Mr. Chen, the judge said during sentencing, you used your mother's life-threatening illness as a weapon against your own family. This court finds your actions particularly reprehensible because they not only caused financial harm, but also interfered with a cancer patient's access to proper medical care. Derek had testified against his criminal associates in exchange for avoiding additional charges that could have resulted in a life sentence. His cooperation helped federal authorities recover over $3 million in stolen money and led to convictions for 12 other defendants. During his testimony, Derek finally acknowledged the full scope of his deception. He admitted to forging signatures, submitting fraudulent insurance claims, stealing money directly from Linda, and planning to fake his own death to escape responsibility for his crimes. I told myself I was protecting my family, Derek said during his victim impact statement. But I was really just protecting myself and making everything worse for the people I claimed to love. Linda had chosen to attend the sentencing hearing despite my concerns about the emotional impact. She wanted to face Derek directly and tell him how his actions had affected our lives. Derek, she said, when given the opportunity to address the court, you nearly destroyed my chance to beat cancer by keeping me away from effective treatments. You stole money that could have been used for my care, and you turned my daughter into a victim of your criminal activities. But you also taught me something important, Linda continued. You showed me the difference between real love and manipulation disguised as love. Real love means protecting someone's well-being, not exploiting their vulnerabilities. Derek wept as Linda spoke, but he didn't try to defend his actions or minimize their impact. For the first time since childhood, he seemed to understand the consequences of his choices. The financial restitution process had been complex, but ultimately successful. Federal authorities recovered most of the money Derek had stolen, and insurance companies reversed the fraudulent claims he had submitted. The debt Derek had accumulated in our names was legally voided, leaving us financially secure rather than ruined. More importantly, Linda's treatment through the clinical trial had been extraordinary. The experimental therapy had eliminated all traces of her cancer within 3 months, and her most recent tests showed no signs of recurrence. The research team described her response as one of their most successful cases. Without Derek's interference, Dr. Williams explained during Linda's 6-month follow-up appointment, we were able to implement the optimal treatment protocol from the beginning. Starting the experimental therapy early gave your mother the best possible chance of complete recovery. Linda's health transformation had been remarkable. She had gained back the weight she had lost during chemotherapy. Her energy levels were higher than they had been in years, and her prognosis was excellent for long-term survival. The emotional healing had been more gradual but equally important. Linda and I had attended family counseling together to process the trauma of Derek's betrayal and rebuild our relationship based on honesty and mutual respect. The manipulation you both experienced was sophisticated and sustained, our counselor explained. Derek used your love for each other as a weapon against you. Learning to trust again after that kind of betrayal takes time. My relationship with Marcus had also been unexpectedly renewed during this crisis. His professional support during the investigation had gradually become personal again, and we had been carefully rebuilding our romantic relationship based on the maturity and shared experiences we had gained over the past 3 years. I never stopped caring about you, Marcus told me one evening as we walked through the park near Linda's house. Seeing you stand up to Derek's manipulation and refuse to enable his criminal behavior just reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place. I never stopped caring about you either, I replied. But I'm glad we're taking this slowly. I need to make sure I can trust my own judgment about relationships after everything Derek put us through. We have all the time in the world, Marcus assured me. And this time, no one is keeping secrets or lying about their motivations. The legal aftermath of Derek's crimes had extended far beyond our family. The federal investigation had uncovered victims across multiple states, and several of those victims had reached out to thank me for my role in exposing the criminal organization. One woman, Catherine, had been in a situation remarkably similar to mine. Her brother had been stealing money to pay off debts to the same criminal organization, using their father's medical expenses as justification. If you hadn't refused to give Derek your money, Catherine wrote in a letter, my brother would have continued stealing from our family for years. Your courage to stand up to him saved my father's life savings and probably our family home. I had begun volunteering with an organization that helped families navigate financial abuse situations. Many people found themselves in circumstances similar to what Linda and I had experienced, where family members exploited medical crises or other vulnerabilities to steal money or commit fraud. Family financial abuse is more common than people realize. The organization's director explained during my training, victims often don't report it because they feel guilty about prosecuting relatives even when those relatives are committing serious crimes. My experience with Derek had taught me that enabling destructive behavior isn't love, it's harm, disguised as help. Real love sometimes means setting boundaries that protect everyone involved, even when those boundaries are painful to enforce. Linda had also found new purpose in her recovery. She had joined a support group for cancer patients and frequently spoke about the importance of advocating for your own medical care. Don't let anyone else control your access to treatment information, she told newly diagnosed patients. Ask questions directly to your medical team. Get second opinions. Make sure you understand all your options before making decisions. Her story about Derek's interference with her treatment had become a cautionary tale that helped other patients recognize and avoid similar manipulation. As Derek's sentencing hearing concluded, Linda and I left the courthouse together, finally free from the legal and emotional aftermath of his crimes. The parking lot was sunny and warm, a beautiful spring day that felt symbolic of our new beginning. "How do you feel?" I asked Linda as we walked to my car. "Relieved," she said after a moment. "Sad for Derek, but relieved that it's finally over." "Do you think you'll visit him in prison?" Linda considered the question carefully. "Maybe eventually. when enough time has passed for me to forgive him without enabling him, but not for a long time. I think that's wise. What about you? Any regrets about how you handled the situation? I thought about everything that had happened from that first confrontation in the hospital waiting room to today's sentencing hearing. No regrets, I said finally. If I had given Derek access to my savings account, none of us would have gotten the help we needed. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone's destructive behavior. Linda smiled and squeezed my hand. That's the most mature thing I've ever heard you say. I learned it from you. When you finally stood up to Derek's manipulation, you showed me what real strength looks like. As we drove home together, I reflected on the profound lessons this ordeal had taught me about family love and personal boundaries. Derek's assault had been intended to force my compliance, but it had actually led to our liberation from his control. The money I had refused to give him was still in my savings account, earning interest and providing security for my future. But more importantly, the courage I had found to resist his manipulation had saved Linda's life and protected both of us from years of additional abuse. I had learned that family loyalty doesn't mean accepting mistreatment or enabling destructive behavior. It means caring enough about people to refuse to participate in their self-destruction, even when that refusal comes at a personal cost. Linda's successful cancer treatment and our renewed relationship had proven that fighting back against family manipulation isn't selfish, it's essential. Sometimes protecting yourself is the only way to protect the people you love. The most important lesson of all was that healing from betrayal takes time, but it's absolutely possible. Linda and I had emerged from Derek's manipulation stronger and closer than we had ever been before. We had learned to communicate honestly, make decisions together, and trust our own judgment about what was best for our family. Derek's crimes had nearly destroyed us financially and emotionally, but his ultimate failure to break our spirits had led us to discover resources and strength we didn't know we possessed. As we pulled into Linda's driveway, I felt genuinely grateful for the experience we had survived together. Not grateful for Derek's betrayal or the trauma he had caused, but grateful for the opportunity to learn that we could face any challenge as long as we faced it honestly and together. Linda and I had proven that real family means protecting each other from harm, supporting each other's best interests, and refusing to enable behavior that hurts the people we love. That was a lesson worth everything we had been through to learn it. The afternoon sun was beginning to set as we sat on Linda's front porch, talking about our plans for the future. For the first time in over a year, those plans were based on hope rather than fear, truth rather than manipulation, and love rather than obligation. Carissa, Linda said as evening settled around us, "Thank you for not giving Derek your money that day. Thank you for believing in me when he tried to convince you I was having a breakdown." "We make a good team," Linda observed. "Yes," I agreed, "we do." I want to ask all of you something important. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself from harmful behavior? How did you find the courage to set boundaries with people you love, even when those boundaries were painful to enforce? Please share your experiences in the comments below, and let me know if this story resonated with your own life challenges. If this story helped you think about family relationships in a new way, please give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of healthy boundaries. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming difficult family situations with courage and integrity. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. I hope it reminds you that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary, and that real love sometimes requires the courage to say no to people who are asking you to participate in their own destruction. Take care of yourselves and remember that you have the strength to face whatever challenges life brings your way.